I mean, as opposed to that first night out, I would assume you had to have quite a few butterflies.
Obviously the experience, that we had last year, and obviously starting off there with the first game is very valuable. There's just something about having that opportunity to work together, go through different situations. I mean, last year we had a lot of big games, just like we'll have this year. And so I think you can kind of draw on the confidence and that we had from the past. But, really it's more than just Tony and myself. When we've got a room of about 10 coaches in there now in the offensive room. And so I think the chemistry of that group is very important because we're up in front of that offense every day. And the way that we interact with each other is really going to have an impact on those guys in that room. And so that's one thing we're very excited about is the chemistry that we have from an offensive staff perspective. We're not always on the same page, but we find a way to work it out. And whenever we leave that room, we are on the same page with the same goal. And I think that's very important and definitely help us this year.
With the most talent you guys have a wide receiver, guys going to have to kind of be patient and be unselfish at times?
Well, to be honest, I really don't think it's any different than what we've had the last 5 or 6 years. We really have not been in a position where we've just had 1 or 2 top guys. We've for the last 5 or 6 years we've had 6, 7, 8 guys that have played. And I think the biggest thing is each of those groups bought into the mentality that is really about the group's success and not the individual success. I mean, all those guys chose to come to Clemson for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is they wanted to be a part of a high-powered offense, one that's going to throw the ball around and give guys opportunities to make plays. And for me, I remember one of my favorite pictures and favorite moments was actually Sammy Watkins' first catch, first touchdown of his career in his first game. And as he's entering the end zone, there's a picture with DeAndre Hopkins running right behind him with this big smile on his face. And I think that picture right there kind of captures the attitude that we want in our room, that we've had in our room, with guys that are very unselfish. And, there's a lot of games, and we're trying to get a lot of plays, so the ball's going to be spread out. Guys just have to be patient, but I don't see that being an issue.
What is that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, okay.
I was going to say, what does that depth do for you guys as far as what you're allowed to do on offense, and how much does that help?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Our goal is 80 plays a game. We'd like those first 3 wideouts throughout the course of the game to play anywhere between 50 and 55 plays, and then that second group be somewhere between 25 and 30 plays. That's kind of the goal. And I think, we always joke that most defenses have 1.5 corners that they trust. So the point of that is they're not going to be rotating the guys in the secondary, especially at the corner position. And so if we're able to rotate our guys and we get in the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden it's fourth quarter of a game, Mike Williams goes up and it's a big play, game's on the line, he makes the catch. For that corner, that was probably play number 78 for him, but for Mike Williams, that was play 51. And there's a huge difference in that. And so we kind of look at it as kind of one of these heavyweight, boxing matches, and we want to be our strongest at the end. And so being able to have that depth and be able to roll guys throughout a game allow us to be our strongest at the end. Very similar to what we do on the defensive line that I really think helps us in those fourth quarter games.
How is Mike's progress?
It's been great. I really expected, to be honest, I expected this past spring to have some kind of growing pains with that and see him kind of get up and maybe roll his neck a little bit and say, hey, I need a play or two. And really there was none of that. It's been well documented. The only thing I saw in the spring, first practice or two, is he was just out of shape a little bit from being in football shape. But really, we were having to say whoa rather than sick him, and that's a good thing. He was wanting to go more full speed than maybe we were wanting him to in the spring. So I think that's a good thing. I saw him last week. He's up to about 223 pounds. I still have in my mind, Mike Williams, Lake Marion High School at about 175 pounds, with these long arms, big shoulders, and you just knew in your mind what that frame was going to look like, in 3 or 4 years, and that's exactly where he is. He's really worked extremely hard, this past summer and also in the spring to get to this point, and I think he's primed for a big year.
What do you think his mindset is? Do you think he's not worried about what happened against Wofford at all?
I think his mindset is he's ready to get back on the field. I mean, these guys, they've been kind of brought up their whole life ready to go out there and make those plays, and have to sit there and watch for 14 games last year, just have to stand on the sidelines, it just builds up a lot of maybe anxiousness where you're ready to get out there and do it. So I think in Mike's mind, that's all he's this game at Auburn can't come quick enough for Mike. That's where I really think his mind is. He's ready to get out there and be able to contribute and help his teammates win. And I think that's where his whole focus is right now.
I'm going to ask the same thing about Dion. Where's his mind at right now after what he went through at the end of last year?
Yeah, I think obviously the situation that he's gone through has allowed him to kind of grow up and mature a little bit, and being very close to having his opportunity at Clemson taken away from him, I think is something that he realizes, and he wants to be able to get back and contribute with the rest of the group. I know he's very excited to be able to be back. He had to go through a lot of things on his part so that he could be back with us, and so I think he's really just kind of ready to get that behind him and get out there with his teammates and be able to contribute on the field just like everybody else.
From a recruiting standpoint, how have you seen it kind of change now that you guys have had the couple of years you have as far as being able to recruit more nationally?
Yeah, it hasn't. The change has not been maybe as drastic as some people would think. Going back to 2011, 2012, we were recruiting extremely high. That class when Sammy Watkins and those guys came in was one of the best classes that we've had. So I think, there have been opportunities for us to go farther, just like this past year going to Kansas, to be able to get Xavier Kelly and Isaiah Simmons, and then obviously in the past being able to go to Connecticut, I think that's changed a little bit, but overall the success in our recruiting has been very consistent, and I think that's one of the reasons that, we've had 5 straight seasons with 10 or more wins because our recruiting has been consistently at a high level each year. But there's no doubt the brand gets stronger each and every year with the more success that we've had, and we have been able to see that on the recruiting trail. But other than that, it's been very similar to our previous 4 years.
Jeff, you were talking about all the playmakers that you had at wide receiver that you have to balance. How about what you and Tony have to do with all the playmakers that seem to be on this team at every position? Running back, tight end, receiver, quarterback.
Yeah, I think really it gets to the point where there's so many playmakers, you really can't sit there and try to game plan for each guy. You really just have to go in there with the mentality of, we have our base offense, we have the things that we like to do, and within that it gives us opportunities to do a lot of different things. Really it comes down to watching the defense and figuring out what's going to be most successful this week against this defense, and that's really where we start. And whenever we go in there on Mondays and meet with the guys and kind of tell them a little bit of preview of what our game plan is going to be based off of what their strengths and weaknesses are defensively, our guys buy into it. I think there was one game last year, maybe I can't quite remember the order, but we ran for over 400 yards maybe against Miami, and then come out the next week and throw for over 400 yards against Boston College. And it's because those defenses were very different schematically. And so I think that's having all of those weapons allows us to be able to attack a lot of different ways, which you're going to be able to need to do as you go through a long season.
It also sounds like all these guys, the players, buy into what you guys are doing because, if they didn't, it could be a problem.
I think a big part of that is the culture that Coach Sweeney has set up where there's very little entitlement, and that those guys get hit with that as soon as they walk in the door as true freshmen, is that there is no entitlement. All these guys are great players. All these guys, come from, great programs and 4 and 5 stars and all that, but that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what do we need to do for Clemson to win? And I think our guys buy into that, but it's a lot bigger than just offensively or defensively. I think it starts at the top with Coach Sweeney and the culture that he's developed, and also Clemson recruits and attracts that certain type of young man that is willing to buy into that culture that's been created.
Have you ever allowed yourself to think, oh my gosh, I'm in charge of what people are expecting to be this super offense that people haven't seen before in college?
I was telling somebody, it was kind of like the analogy that, whenever I got my first car, it was a used car, kind of a beat up car, and it didn't matter if you got a little ding here or there, and then all of a sudden you go later on in your life maybe and you buy that first kind of luxury vehicle, and you don't want to park within 10 parking spots of anybody. Sometimes you have to guard yourself of kind of having that feeling, but to be honest, as a player you can't play scared, and as a coach, you can't coach scared. Now, obviously, there's certain things you need to do to be smart. You know, each game and each situation in games calls for different things, and you can choose when to be aggressive and when not. But overall, you know, the attitude is, hey, we're going full speed ahead. And that's really the only way that you can do it and be successful. If you sit back and try to stay too conservative and sit here and try to keep guys from getting hurt, then they're not going to be able to play to their full potential, and we won't be able to have our full potential offensively. So it's definitely something that we're maybe we watch, but nothing that concerns us in the way that we coach or approach each day of practice or game.
You use the wide receiver "you" phrase for several years now, but given the talent you guys have on hand this year, is it more legitimate than ever?
You know, that's fun, probably for recruiting talk, and a lot of the recruits kind of get into that. I know the fans get into that, and it's fun. I think the receivers, you know, kind of the previous classes that have moved on and gone to the NFL, I think they're very proud of, you know, the tradition at Clemson at the wide receiver position. And we got that tradition in a lot of different positions, but for them specifically, that's something that they're very proud that they were kind of part of that group that got it going. And so, you know, I think that we have been able to recruit at a very high level at the wide receiver position and at a lot of other positions. And so, you know, I think that's something that our current guys, they also take a lot of pride in, that they want to continue the tradition at the wide receiver position at Clemson, because it is very important, and it's something that they want to kind of leave their mark on as well, because there'll be another group coming behind them trying to break all their records.
What's it like seeing guys like DeAndre Hopkins have the season he had, and Sammy Watkins, and Davis? I mean, these guys are having big seasons in the NFL.
Yeah, very, very proud of those guys. Not surprised. You know, the work ethic that each of those guys had when they were at Clemson. I mean, you could tell their approach, like Christian Wilkins, you know, from a defensive side. You can tell right now that guy, if he stays healthy, he'll be a 12-year NFL pro, just because of his mentality, the way he practices, the way he approaches everything. It's just at a higher level than everyone else. And that's how those guys were when they were at Clemson. So I'm not surprised, but I'm very happy for them. And these are, you know, I've got some great pictures that I show these recruits when they come in of Nuke and Sammy and Martavis when they were juniors in high school, when they were at our football camp. You know, a picture of me standing with them at our football camp before their senior year of high school, because I want to remind these recruits that those guys were just like you. They had to start exactly where you are. And I think sometimes, you know, the recruits in high school, they kind of look up to these guys and think that they've kind of always been there. You know, but it's a process that you have to go through. You have to make good decisions, work hard, and stay healthy. And those guys have been able to do that. But I'm very happy for those guys. And each week on Sunday, when we kind of step in and out of our meetings, we're always kind of checking the updates and seeing how those guys are doing.
I think Christian Wilkins thinks he is a receiver, by the way.
I'll take him, no doubt.
He's shown some skills, hasn't he?
He does, exactly right.
How about Hunter Renfrow last year? Just his emergence.
Yeah,
big in the title game, and throughout the season.
It was great. I mean, it really was not a surprise to our coaches and our players those last few games, because they'd seen it in practice, you know, all fall long, and he just kind of got some more opportunities. I think in those last few games, the defense was kind of trying to take away some of the guys on the outside, so it opened up more opportunities for him in the middle to be able to get some of those balls. But I mean, he's a great example of a guy that just walked on, you know, didn't have any Division I scholarship offers, and very unassuming, and had to work for everything that he got. He started at the absolute bottom and worked himself up to becoming a starter. And I mean, his best ball is still in front of him. Some people may think it's kind of a flash in the pan. He just had a couple of good games, but I mean, as he continues to get bigger and stronger, like he is now, he's put on about 10 pounds. I mean, he's just going to get better and better. So I'm excited to know that he's just going to be a sophomore this year.
Jeff, do you worry that your guys will feel any additional pressure after coming so close last year and being predicted to be right back there again this year?
I think that's natural, and I think that's really the progression as a program where you want to go. You know, it wasn't that long ago we were kind of at that point. you know, where as a program we had to get to a point where we could beat all the teams we were expected to beat, you know, and then once we kind of accomplished that, now it's, you know, we've got to beat those top tier teams that maybe we haven't done that very well. Now we've kind of done that. Now we're kind of moving to that next realm, and so definitely it's something that's new. But this is where we want to be, and this is why those guys came to Clemson, is they want to be in this position where, you know, each year you have a legitimate opportunity, you know, to realistically have a chance to play for it all and win it all. So, you know, they're definitely, I think that we'll have that. That'll be natural, but it's the way that the guys respond to that, the way that they channel that. I think Coach Sweeney and our coaching staff will do an excellent job of, you know, really the focus for the last 5 or 6 years since Coach Sweeney's, you know, kind of been taken over has been, it's all about us. It's all about Clemson. You know, it's not about who we play, WHO, it's about how we play, HOW. And our guys have really bought into that. And so if we can just kind of stay focused each week on the game at hand, you know, and that's what happened last year. I mean, nobody at the beginning of the year, last year, was talking, you know, playing 15 games and having a chance to play for a national championship. You know, they were just, you know, it just kind of happens if you kind of stay focused and stay in the moment. And so that'll be our biggest challenge for our guys is to keep the same focus that we've had in the past.
Is there a different, do you have to approach things differently with these guys to get them to keep that edge, to keep that focus? Because they're not on the grind anymore, they're right there.
You know, I don't think it's going to be a whole lot different, to be honest, as far as the way that we approach them, because, like I said, that groundwork has been laid. I mean, even when maybe in years past where we were not picked to be really high, and maybe there were some doubters out there on how successful Coach Sweeney told them back then, hey, that means nothing. You know, I mean, that, what really means, the only thing that is important is what we do on the field. And so now that all of a sudden we're rated up high, you know, we're going to tell the same message. Hey, guys, that means nothing. And there's plenty of examples. I'm sure Coach Sweeney will show them a few examples. I mean, more teams than not that are rated up there at the top typically don't end up there. And so, you know, our guys like a challenge, and so that'll kind of probably be a big challenge for them is, hey, you're picked at the top, and now can we go do everything it takes to be there at the end, because that's what truly matters. So I'm sure we'll find a way to challenge them with the situation we're in now.